Thank you, everyone. And I think these talks have been inspiring for those of us who have been in this space, as much as for all of you who are attending. And I'm sure you've seen that with a lot of the artists who have been here for a long time. In fact, some of them are wrapping up their integrations with crypto and moving forward. And I hope that demonstrates that there's a history here and there's a spirit that we at the Museum of Crypto Art are really trying to take forward as a public good. And I am the daughter of a hardware semiconductor IP designer, and I fell in love with art history when I was like 15. And I kind of moved through trying to find something that could address general worldwide irrationality. And I eventually fell into this, and crypto art as a concept is really, really difficult to grasp because every person has a different definition. And for us, I think if we're going to confuse you, that's better than trying to define what we're trying to do. And so we pose these questions of what is art and who decides. And the concept of a museum is always traditionally one around defining a canon for you. That is what all our greatest museums have done, especially in the Western world. Now, what happens when you are presented with a technology where you don't have to respond to a centralized authority, but instead you can use network effects, you can find people on social media, you can engage in conversation and art making, and when you bring people together and ask them to bring out their imaginations for the purpose of something greater, really wonderful things happen. And at the same time, what we've seen now, in the last year, is also like massive market frenzy around an innovation. So for us, we really, over the last 2 years have thought about what are our highest values and also what is our purpose moving forward. So I'm gonna just hopefully take you through the origins into the future of what we're doing. So, April of 2020, is when we opened. And as a Metaverse Museum, right, that means that the interest originally was in showcasing and display. So this was a group of collectors who were interested in showcasing artwork in a new way. So interacting, socializing in VR first. And this was the first building. And over time, in the first 6 months of the project, there was a lot of exhibition focus. So a lot of the artists that you've heard from and many, many others that you haven't, but you can look up afterwards and I'm sure you can find, they were interested in taking part in such exhibitions because no one was actually telling them, we would like to build a story around the work that you're presenting on the blockchain. And we look at the blockchain as like immutable information and as a series of timestamps, right? And if you look at an artist's work, let's say they present a collection or they present all kinds of random mints, let's say, of their free thinking, you can still, as a curator, look at it as a presentation of art and try to put edges to it. And these experiments and exhibitions were beautiful. I think I jumped too far ahead, but those the two exhibitions you saw on the previous one, they were incredible to attend because there was like light, there was sound, there was movement. You can like walk into pixels and out of them, and you just can't do that on a computer screen at all. So VR was an incredible experience, and ultimately, I'm going to jump forward now into 2021, and as Colburn and myself are speaking, we meet Renee, who is an incredible Ethereum developer, and a group of people who say it's possible for us to create a new type of museum. And that had been the idea all along, but it was important for us to put an infrastructure to it. So we have a social token, and I know that gets thrown around a lot, and it's just a VC like mess at this point, in my opinion, but there is actual benefits to it. It lets you bring a community together, it lets us have members, and it lets us reward artists and reward the people that would like to be interested in this museum in the future for the long term. So we ultimately came out with a manifesto with our core principles and our core values. And that took a lot of time, a lot of interrogation, a lot of questioning of ourselves as people and of the organization and what we wanted it to be. And over the next couple months, we really set in stone the different ways that we were going to make sure that artists were the people speaking for crypto art and no one else. And that was a very deliberate decision, and I think we made sure the economics were there for that, because that is fundamental to how people move and feel about each other in any organization. And we also created an incubator so that the emerging artistry that was from the project over a year of 2020 could be maintained and also grown to different art collectives around the world. So actually with crypto art, you have collectives of people in different countries who have come together. For example, this is an exhibit that we helped sponsor and work with in Decentraland for an Argentinian artist community. And they continue to be this kind of black market group, but now just working in the way that they see best, which is entirely in crypto. So by focusing on the artists that are the basis for everything that is happening in this billion dollar economy, I think we are really pushing people to think about who they trust and why. And that is what crypto is about. And that's why artists are quite important and quite, in fact, the most important people, I think, to talk about cryptocurrency to the larger world. And to set this in place, we set up a Genesis collection. And this is a lot of the artists that you heard from today, including first mints, first mediums of different types. So this is the museum building with the Genesis collection inside of it. And it was built by an architect named Untitled XYZ, who's now our resident architect. I think the video is good enough words for what it feels like to experience a museum in the metaverse. And this was the first of many builds we ended up doing over the summer of 2021. And just as an example, this was particularly fun because we collaborated with a dead artist and a living Italian crypto artist duo and an auction house. And we built a reinterpretation of the Pantheon inspired by the patterns of a QR code. And I'm not going to take credit for any of that brilliance. I'm going to put it entirely towards the architect and our team who really did a cool job with this. But this is again a new way to experience time, conflating experience and reality, and putting those into something that doesn't feel real but really is, because you're in a room of people all across the world, like speaking and talking to each other. And this, over time, this project has really become, for me, about how technology is applied philosophy and ideology. So we've made it a priority now that we're going to create the tools so that people can test their hypotheses, curate in the way they would like to, and start to build a connection to NFTs and ideally, to crypto art that we are not telling them to do at all. These are just some of the data points for you all to see on who we interact with. And it's really humbling, and it's amazing how many visitors, how many people have been interested in what we're doing. I think the nitty-gritty of this is that people are inspired by a public good. Yay, there we go. And this is created by Mr. Ritchie, who's a really cool artist, but he is showing basically how you become a member of this museum. It's not by buying a ticket and walking into a building, but by connecting your wallet address to an application we have built with the NFTs and crypto art that you feel compelled by. You activate it into our museum collection with an on-chain handshake, and you put into history that you are now confirming that you would like your artwork to be part of this museum. And this further expands now to a concept of architecture. And instead of just, we started this journey thinking about the spatial experience, and we're going to continue to do that. And this is our way of inviting anyone who would like to build a room of the museum to do so. And I think it's a really cool innovation that will let people step in between virtual worlds, so they don't have to be tied to any kind of corporation. And it can really expand and free your mind when you think about what happens if you get to build the architecture of your own world. Yeah, I think, sometimes it escapes me to speak about like the grandest visions and emotions because I'm practical, but I do think that this project has inspired me in a way that I never ever expected, and I think any of you that choose to start in crypto art, you will find that it just expands parts of your brain and question your reality, and I think that's what we want to continue to do. So I just kind of summarized, like, if we're going to be decentralized, that means we're going to be really, really intense about making sure that if you would like to be part of this museum, if you are interested in the concept, that you bring your greatest imagination. And one project we're working on is actually building a virtual being for the museum that's built from a custom GPTJ model, so that we can start to aggregate all the blockchain information and comments and images into something that is sentient, as opposed to a human being. So it's transhumanist, but it's altruistic because we're not seeking to dominate as like the curators from a human perspective. And I think this video really shows the next step of what is going to be possible. So this is one of the rooms. It's, again, a 3D object that is a smart contract. It was just placed in this world, and the experience is incredible. And every day, this technology improves, like really, really does. And it's really fun to work with it and see how it continues to feel like entirely alienistic, if that's a word. But I love it. I totally love it. It really transports you. So thank you so much. Thank you for listening to everything today.